What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Ken here, and welcome to Eastern North Carolina, where I got it to like 70 today. Just crazy that we're on the last day of February and getting these kind of warm temps already. But man, I got in about a 5-mile training hike this morning. Did CrossFit Open 25.1 this afternoon. Let's do a little content to close out the week strong here as the sun is setting. When it comes to tents, I don't know about you, but you know, you're always looking for a lot of things about waterproofness and weight especially, right? And is it going to stand up to the elements, the conditions that I'm planning to be ahead of me on a trip, right? But specifically what I've been kind of running into as well is when a tent says 2-person. That's something I want to get into a little bit with this video that might help you make a more educated decision on what tent is best for you based on the measurements that you'll see online. So first off, I have Nemo's Hornet Osmo 2-person tent. And then I've got the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Unbound 2-person tent. So if you don't know, these are two very distinctly different tents. This is new for me to kind of play around with the difference between a semi-freestanding tent that is a double-walled tent, meaning it has the tent and then a rain fly that goes over. You got your stakes, and then you got the poles in the big bag, versus a trekking pole tent that is a single-wall tent. So it doesn't have a rain fly, it's just independently waterproof in and of itself. But then you have trekking poles that set this up. And just for context, once you see this, I actually have Hyperlite Mountain Gear's Mid 1. It's a 1-person tent that I'm going to review later in comparison to this one to see which one is really where I want to go on my through hike coming up here at the end of this year. So first off, for some other context, this is a 40-ounce tent package right here in Nemo. So 40 ounces is not a ton. 16 ounces in a pound, so 32 ounces is 2 pounds. And as you get 2 pounds 8 ounces here in the Nemo tent, 2 pounds 8 ounces versus 1 pound 6 ounces, 22 total ounces here in the Hyperlite Mountain Gear tent. This does take tent stakes, but not tent poles, because again, you're using trekking poles to set this up. So my first concern with this tent being trekking pole tent was mostly around the idea that as I'm hiking with my trekking poles, should either one of those poles have a malfunction, break, do something weird on me, then I'm in some trouble, right? Because that is my tent stakes. My trekking poles are my tent poles, I should say. So I was real concerned about that. That's why getting the Mid 1 from Hyperlite Mountain Gear is starting to add a little bit of confidence to me that hopefully it wouldn't be something so extreme that both trekking poles break on me. So if only one does, I still got the one to set that tent up. But as a 2-person tent though, if you're hiking with someone else that both has trekking poles like my wife and I do, well then you have 4 poles, only need 2. So you have some great diversity there. So I want to just set both of these up and get into a few things that I have learned that's caused me to kind of get to the place where I'm going to return the Nemo tent and go with the Hyperlite Unbound 2-person tent as my staple 2-person tent for my wife and I as we backcountry hike. And then again, later, I'll have the Mid 1 review in comparison to this one to see if for sure I would want to go with, which one I would want to go with for my through hike. So let's get these things set up, yeah?
Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the praises of the King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the joy of the King rise among us. Let it rise. Let it rise. Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the praises of the King rise among us. Let it rise. And Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. And let the joy of the King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, let it rise. Let it rise.
So this is it's two person. You can get two people in here and sleep. My wife and I have done it a few times, but it's tight. And here's why. First off, this is a tapered tent. So it's 85 inches long, which for someone at 6'2", my hood on my sleep system and my foot box a little bit on my sleep system will take a little bit of condensation and they'll be a little bit damp. The other thing that happens though, real quick to touch on, is this spot right here where the Nemo logo is. That's a spot where the rain fly is in constant contact with the end of the tent. And that constant touching point there will cause a little bit of condensation to drip, and it hits me in the head. And it happened in a heavy condensation area. It happened in a frost area. It happened with a little bit of rain. The frequency of the drips was way worse with the high condensation in the mountains I was in. It is also decently bad with high frost and the condensation from my breath on the inside when it was like 20 degrees. But the rain wasn't bad. It wasn't really that bad, or it didn't drip at all. So interesting there, just to take that into account. That again, this is just right here at the seam where the rain fly is constantly touching the inside of the tent. It dripped a lot on me, depending on the conditions. But back to the space on the inside. So across the head end of the tent, it's at 51 inches. So if you have two extra wide pads at 25 inches, then you're right next to each other. There's zero floor space that you're playing with inside this tent. You don't have an inch to spare. Let me just put it that way. It's tight. But down at the foot box, what you get is it tapers. This tent then goes down to 43 inches. Now, I'm currently using Zenbivi's ultralight sleep pad. It tapers at the end, which helps it be ultralight. But it also is really important in a tent like this because you need that foot box space in this tent. My wife is using the Nemo Tensor all-season pad. Because it was mine, it's extra long and extra wide, so it's square, or rectangle, I should say. So at the foot, that squared off end of her pad overlaps on mine a little bit, and it's really, really tight in the foot box. Now, once you get in your bags and you're sleeping, no real big deal, but it's worth considering that if you're going to get the Nemo Osmo Hornet two-person ultralight tent, that you consider your current sleep systems and what you have. If you have two extra wide, extra long, squared off or rectangle sized pads, it's going to be really tight, if possibly not even doable in this kind of tent. But if your pads are tapered, like Thermarest has it, Zenbivi has it, then it can end up working out great in this tent when you have those tapered sleeping pads. So just consider that in this tent. Again, I was considering keeping it as just basically a one person for me. I could put my gear in here. I can lay a lot of stuff out next to me. And it worked out really great that way as a one person tent. As a two person, there's just considerations to have. One thing I really did like about this tent was this little pouch up here at the top where you could put a headlamp in there and it makes this kind of glow on the whole inside of the tent. I really liked that. It kind of lit up the tent so you didn't have to worry about wearing the headlamp or hanging it some awkward way. But this pouch here, you can see how flimsy it is. You couldn't put anything in there of any kind of weight. Like if you tried to put a headlamp in there, it fell out. If you tried to put your phone in there, it fell out. So that top pouch does not, where's it at there? This one here does not work well for any of that stuff. And then again, being 6'2", when I sit up, one, I have to lean over into the middle of the tent. And if I do, there's room, right? But I have got to be careful when I sit up because my head was hitting these pouches and knocking stuff out as I was sitting up. Clearly, if my wife was in here with me, she can't sit up at the exact same time unless we do some creative positioning here. So that was one downside. Again, it just caused me to think that, hey, maybe this is best to be just a one-person tent, not so much two if you plan on both really being in here together to do anything other than sleeping. The biggest reason I'm returning this thing, there's two reasons. One, that drip coming from the inside was just annoying, and getting my foot box and head hood wet a lot from the condensation. I don't like that. I don't want to keep playing around with that. Now, if you're a shorter person, this tent will be great for you. The other thing is, considering that this is just a whole screen on the inside of this thing, and it's because it's a double walled tent, having to lay this tent out and set it up and then put the rain fly on over top, unless you got some ninja skills with your tent setup abilities, but you saw it with the wind, it can be a little problematic. You could get some rain inside this tent, especially if it's raining hard while you're trying to set it up. And that's another thing, that just for a through hike, I want to be prepared for anything. If I was planning my trips around better weather and I wasn't worried about that kind of stuff, you know, and the rain fly would be more to protect us if some rain came in the evening or something like that, which has been our situation, then this is a great tent. Aesthetically looks great. I really do like it. It's just a couple of those things that I don't think is going to serve me well on a through hike based on what I'm looking for. So let's take a look at the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Unbound 2-person tent, and I'll show you some first impressions of what really stood out to me with that tent. All right, so setting up the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Unbound 2-person tent. This is my third time doing it now out here in the backyard. That's a big recommendation I have for you all, is to really put in the reps in a comfortable place like this, you know, your backyard, where you can make mistakes. I get out here when it's cold. I try to get out here when it's wet. I play around in the fire pit. I do different things here so that once it's time to get into the backcountry, I've got some reps behind me, and I'm not trying to figure it out in the middle of nowhere, right? So third time setting it up, what I have discovered, it can be a little deceiving when you watch the video. You know, they say stake down all 4 corners and then just pitch up the 2 trekking poles, tighten down your guy lines and all that, and you're good to go, right? Well, what's kind of missed in that instruction is how much slack or how tight do the 4 corners need to be when you get started. What I have discovered is I adjust the guy lines to about 1/3 of the way. So, and then what I'll do is, or what that does is give me enough slack where I'm able to actually insert my trekking poles. So that's the next point I want to show you here with the trekking poles versus the stakes that you can actually buy from Hyperlite Mountain Gear in replace of the actual trekking poles. So what Hyperlite Mountain Gear does is they sell these carbon fiber tent poles that you can select off the website based on the tent that you have. So as you can see here, this is the Unbound 2-person tent carbon fiber trekking poles. Now what they advertise with this tent is that the height of this thing is 48 inches or 122 centimeters. That's what they advertise as the height, right? So when I was, again, staking out the corners and trying to insert my poles, I started with these carbon fiber poles. And what I just want to highlight to you here is my trekking poles at 6'2", so that when I'm holding on to them, my arms are at a 90-degree angle. My trekking poles are set top and bottom at the 135 centimeter mark. I did not measure this with a tape measure, but I just want to point out that the carbon fiber trekking poles stick up about 3 inches longer than my trekking poles, and they're advertised as being a 122 centimeter pole. Again, I've got my poles set at 135 centimeters at the top and the bottom, and you know, they're saying that this is a 122 centimeter pole. I could not get these carbon fiber poles into the the pocket at the top and actually get it to slip through the strap that is available here at the bottom. Okay, you can see that strap coming out right there. So what I love about the trekking pole way of doing it is, you know, the trekking poles have that tip at the bottom, that steel tip. And what I'm able to do then is, once I insert the handle in first and I bring it down to the bottom, then I'm able to insert that steel tip through that strap, and that tip then goes into the ground, which just helps really lock in and give me an extra layer of just tautness with the bathtub between poles. So that's one of those initial things I do, is just make sure that I pull the second pole away from the first one in a way that really tightens the bathtub floor down. So that's what I've chosen to go with, is having my trekking pole again at 135 centimeters. I mean, it's one of the longer poles, and it's still not as long as this carbon fiber pole is that Hyperlite Mountain Gear provides. So that tells me that, I mean, I don't question Hyperlite Mountain Gear. They made this thing for a reason, but the tip is, you know, is just flat. So that means that there's nothing that's going to really stick down on the ground unless the ground is soft. But this thing is going to actually give you 3 more inches of headspace than what I've got already. When I sit up in there at 6'2", I've got an enormous amount of headroom left over. So once I get everything all set up, my third time doing it has been my best time, and now, meaning that it was, as you saw here, it was incredibly taut all the way around. The one thing that I'm still playing around with are the 4 corners of the bathtub that have loops for stakes, but do I really need to carry those extra stakes or not? But just enough to kind of create some more tautness on the bathtub floor, so that as we're moving around and doing stuff, I'm not kind of tugging on that. It's just a little extra security, if you will, and I don't mean the armed guard security, right? But a little bit of extra tautness in the tent that it can enable it to even better stand up in the elements and all that. Okay, so once I get it set up, the first thing you're going to notice about the Unbound 2-person tent is the vestibule areas on both sides are enormous. So I'm able to put all of my gear on the inside over here in the vestibule, and then still have all this area to get in and out of the tent on this side if I want to. That screen, however, unzips the whole side basically of the tent. That would allow me a whole lot of space to get in and out of my pack without having to go around the trekking pole. So really like that feature. So the other thing I really love about this tent compared to my Nemo is this space. What we've done now, so again, this is just kind of a reminder that when you're choosing your 2-person tent, those measurements matter as it pertains to your gear. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I've actually built a house around my living room furniture, so I can understand buying a tent around my sleep system potentially. So what we've got now as an option is, because I'm 6'2" and 210, I've got Zembivi's ultralight sleep pad that is an extra wide and long. So I'm dealing with a 25-inch up here at the top head end, the upper half of the mattress, but then it tapers down at the bottom. We've moved my wife into a 72-inch. This is the regular size Nemo Tensor all-season sleep pad. We've moved her into the regular size one, which is still 72 inches long. She's 5'7", so has an enormous amount of length, but at a 20-inch width, it's we're gonna play with that and give it a night or two here and there to see how she feels. She's more of a mummy sleeper, so we've got her in the kind of mummy bag, and she just sleeps on her back most of the night. So whereas me, I'm very active side sleeper, and that's why this mattress from Zenbivy was so highly recommended. You can see the two very different styles that those sleep pads present for us based on how we sleep. So what I wanted to emphasize with this tent, however, is that the measurements tell you that this is a 48-inch wide bathtub. A 48-inch wide bathtub then would tell me that two 25-inch beds, 50 inches, would not fit. But I just want to show you, if I bring my sleep pad all the way to one side, okay, and again, she's in a 20-inch pad all the way to the other side. I don't know about y'all, but that's easily 5 inches of space that I've got left over in this bathtub. That's without staking out the corners of the bathtub. The only thing, so there's plenty of room here that if we wanted to move her into an extra wide mattress just to give her more space, more comfort, more pad, we could do that. But the other thing that's super cool about this, with being a 93-inch long bathtub, is you can see the space I've got over my head and foot box. Just an enormous amount of space here. So what I also love about it is the headroom that enables me to sit up straight, and my wife, and we have plenty of room to sit up straight, mess around in here with our clothes or our sleep system, our food, anything we might have to be messing around with inside the tent, especially when it's inclement weather and we can't really be out. There's a ton of headspace in this tent. Oh my goodness, finished up all that editing and realized I never even did an outro. So thanks for watching. Hit me up in the comments. Would love to interact with you more and maybe benefit from your lessons learned with any of these tent systems or something that you're using you really like. And until next time, man, let me break this stuff down, and I will see you on the trail.
Our shepherds kept their watching, or silent flocks by night. Behold, throughout the heavens, there shone